There it is.
Hello, this is Jess with Her Mood Mentor, and today I'm meeting with one of my PMDD rehab students and one-to-one clients, Shannon. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Jess.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Shannon is here to share her story with us, and we are so grateful and excited to hear from you, Shannon. These stories bring so much hope and validity into the community, so thanks for being willing and showing up today to share.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here and excited to hopefully help someone else.
Yay. Awesome. So let's zoom back and start from the beginning. When do you feel like these hormonal mood symptoms and menstrual symptoms started for you?
Yeah, that's a really great question, honestly. Um, I will say that for most of my life, I've had like pretty wonky periods, including like period pain and things of that nature, acne, all of that stuff. So I was put on birth control at a pretty young age, probably when I was 15 or 16. And so I honestly never really had the chance to basically to see what my life was like with a true menstrual cycle. But I went on and off birth control for about 10 years and again never really knew what a normal menstrual cycle was like. But fast forward to, I don't know, let's say about 5 years ago, um, I was off birth control at the time, had a period that was so painful, and that I ended up at the gynecologist. And she was actually the first person who suggested to me that I might have endometriosis. But she then proceeded to explain that the only way to deal with said endometriosis was to do a laparoscopy, which was surgery. Or she could just give me a birth control pill and I could take birth control continuously. I mean, I was younger at the time, and taking a pill continuously sounds much simpler than undergoing invasive surgery. So I just took the birth control pill for a long while. And that led to probably a solid 3 years of me being on the pill, off the pill, on the pill, off the pill. But during that time too, I noticed my hormones and my moods just kind of getting wackier and wackier. Um, and it really got to the point that it was on one of the last pills I was on. I started experiencing really bad insomnia for the first time in my life. Was would go probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 days without getting a good night's sleep, and then I would legitimately have to take time off of work because I was so miserable and like couldn't focus. Um, so that was sort of the beginning of the end of birth control for me, I think. Um, After that happened, I went off of it for a bit, gave one more birth control pill a try. The insomnia was thankfully under control at that point. But again, my mood just started going downhill pretty quickly. So it's like there's got to be some other way to deal with all of this. And I got an official PMDD diagnosis from my doctor after going to him and basically saying, "Hey, like the week or two before my period, like I'm miserable, like I have insomnia, my emotions are all over the place, things that my partner does that normally wouldn't bother me, they like drive me up a wall in these 2 weeks and they like set me off, and like I basically decide that he doesn't love me and doesn't care about me, like all of those sorts of things. So I shared all these things with the doctor, and I was like, I think I might have PMDD, and he was like, Yeah, I agree with you. So then that was when I was prescribed Zoloft, which full disclosure, I'm still taking. Would like to wean off a bit at some point, but one step at a time.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, got the PMDD diagnosis. Wanted to avoid the whole birth control roller coaster when I've learned that it's just really not for me or for my body. tried several different kinds of them. So I somehow stumbled across your page on Instagram, really don't know how. And that was kind of my first glimpse into realizing that PMDD could be uh, handled, or you could work with it a little bit more holistically and let your body do what it's trying to do instead of just like throwing yet another pill at it. And that was
Mm.
something that really interested me.
Yeah, thanks for walking us through that. It's so interesting to see like how long we can suffer from these symptoms. Like basically, I mean, the pain was there for you initially, but just menstrual cycle symptoms from the onset of menarche being
Right.
there, and then this roller coaster ride of 15 years or more for you,
Yeah.
trying all the things and trying to find your way with it. What impact, I mean, you talked a little bit about it with the medication symptoms impacting your work performance and your ability to show up at work and the symptoms impacting your partner relationship, but what other impact have these symptoms had on your quality of life?
Yeah. That is a great question.
Not a super fun one, but
I really not know. Yeah, so I've been off birth control for a long while now, enough to flat out realize that when the gynecologist suggested endometriosis to me, that she probably wasn't that far off, and that I very likely do have endometriosis. So some of the pain symptoms that I've had even have like carried on over into the period. And during my last one, full disclosure, I ended up throwing up from the pain, which was the first time in my life that that had happened. But I believe that if I had still been on birth control and trying to obscure the symptoms, like while that wouldn't have happened, I just would have gone on living my life and not really realizing that, hey, like I probably have endometriosis and it's something that needs to be treated or it will continue to cause problems.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a
Yeah.
big one. Um, and then in what was it? It would have been like 2016 probably. I was actually diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome with constipation after like a really bad flare up. Ended up in the hospital, all of that. But like looking back now, and the fact that I have digestive symptoms more or less all the time and am continuously on medication for it, um, like looking back, considering that I'm on medication and with what I have learned about endometriosis, that's just like more of a confirmation for me that I was likely misdiagnosed as having irritable bowel syndrome, and that again the doctor was on the right track. And now I've gotten to a place where several gynecologists are willing to operate on me to see if they find endometriosis.
Mm. Yeah. So it was a long time of just putting the symptoms at bay, but not really addressing any of the underlying inflammation, any of the underlying drivers behind those symptoms.
Right, exactly. Because we just tend to treat symptoms as they pop up
Yeah.
in Western medicine and never really stop to think like there's probably a reason. Like, what is the actual reason? And like, why is this person's body doing this to them?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not normal to be in that much pain, not normal to have severe mood symptoms related to your cycle. Of course, will feel differently from day to day, but there's a limit to what we consider normal and what falls outside of the range of that. And all of those symptoms, they really have such an impact on our quality of life, you know, how we show up in our day, how we move through our day, how we be the closest version that we want to be to ourselves. I mean, if there are severe symptoms getting in the way, we can't really show up the way that we want to. And when that goes on for 15 plus years, you know, it can be so damaging. And it's quite the journey to go through. So I know that was hard to share because it's not a fun to recap the history there, but it's so important, Jen, for people to understand that they're not alone and to understand that, there are limits to what is normal and what isn't, and to understand that there are options outside of treating a symptom.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been a long road. It has been, as you said, about 15 years, if not longer. But yeah, you have options. You just have to, unfortunately, most people have to get to a place where they realize that what they've been doing isn't working and that there's got to be something better out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let's move in then to talking about the work that we did together and how taking this approach that was more targeted to root cause, interventions and addressing that underlying inflammation and some of the underlying drivers behind your symptoms. How was that experience different for you than just taking the medication? Or not just, I don't want to frame it in that way, but then taking the medication.
Yeah. Yeah, still taking medications.
Hmm.
So obviously the things can work together
Yeah.
and you decide to do whatever works best for you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I will say, like, it was really great to work with you, but I will say that at first I was feeling very nervous about it and kind of skeptical about it. Like, oh, I'm gonna have to make these massive changes that are gonna be like so difficult and go like gluten free and dairy free and like whatever other protocol you can think of.
Hmm.
Um, and it was honestly much simpler. Well, I don't want to say it was simpler than that, but it was a lot of little steps and like lots of little goals that we worked on week by week that have started to add up to larger changes over time and that will continue to add up to bigger changes over time. And that I've realized how sustainable it can really be, and that's something I'm grateful for.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's so much fear. This is such a common thing I hear from clients and students as they enter the programs of, oh, it's going to be like so overwhelming and I'm going to have to change everything. And that makes so much sense because our symptoms are so severe. It feels like the thing that we need to do to address them has to be really dramatic and um, aggressive. But it's rarely the case, thank goodness, that the truth is that those small changes can really add up to compound into big changes over time. And it's really the importance there is really personalizing it to each individual. So, as you were saying, like you started to see these improvements, what were you noticing?
Yeah, I have honestly noticed that I do feel more in tune with my body than I did before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, an example that I've given in the past is that I feel like I don't know, like I'm a pretty active person and have come to realize that I probably wasn't feeling myself as well as I should have before this. So I've been working on that, and now anytime that I'm like without food for whatever reason for an extended period of time, be it like traveling and having like a weird eating schedule or whatever, I feel like I'm much more aware of like what that does to my body and that it honestly doesn't make me feel the greatest. Um so yeah, I'm basically better at listening to my body, I think, which is something that will definitely help me in the long run as I continue to deal with PMDD and as I get treatment for endometriosis.
Yeah, so often we want to disconnect from the body because it's not fun to have these symptoms, right? It's
Yeah.
painful, it's psychologically painful. So we can disassociate, we can repress. And when we do that, we're not getting the information. So a big thing that we work on in the program that has helped you make this shift is starting to recognize those symptoms as messages and information rather than pain and punishment. And
Yeah.
so as you open yourself up to the symptoms, you start changing your perspective of what they're trying to tell you. And then we start to bring those protocols in to answer the what the symptoms are telling you to give the answer. It's like it's a whole process of discovering your triggers. What's really triggering some of these mood symptoms to be as bad as they are and to be so severe that it's more difficult to manage them. If you're
Yeah.
more in touch with the symptom, you start to understand what the triggers are, you can slowly change your behavior over time where the symptoms are reduced and you're managing the symptoms better. It also helps to be in touch with your body so that you can communicate and advocate for yourself, which is huge and something that you worked a lot with throughout this process.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say something and completely forgot what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Yeah. But that was so beautiful. That was such a beautiful part of your process of opening up and listening to yourself with more compassion and less judgment because there's that inner voice with PMDD can just be so critical.
Yeah.
And you were able to work with that in a different way moving forward and see those triggers more as information and then to respond to them in a different way, which led you feeling better and also
Yeah.
led you to understand, oh, why was what were some of the reasons why I was feeling so bad before? Other
Yeah.
than just, I deserve this, I'm a bad person. You know, we can tell ourselves all of these things about the experience when a lot of the time those small changes of how well are we nourished, how hydrated are we, how much are we moving our bodies, is it too much, is it not enough, all of these factors, sleep, stress management, play such a huge role, and it's really a lot less about who you are as a person and a lot more about how you're caring for yourself.
Yeah. Observation is yeah, observation is a super important part of this, and just learning to kind of tune in to what you need and what your body is telling you. Mhm.
Yeah. Anything else you noticed in this experience or anything else that shifted for you as we took this approach?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think too, something that shifted is I don't know, I'm still working on this, but I'm very much like an like all or nothing kind of person. And I've learned through this process that there is definitely a balance to be struck. And often by living life in a balanced way, um, you're going to reduce stress, which will in turn reduce symptoms, which is what we're all hoping for. Um, so an example for me of that comes to mind is for me particularly, we spend some of the time working with diet, and I learned about seed oils and like different kinds of fats and those sorts of things. Seed oils are obviously impossible to avoid, but the part of me that was like all or nothing is like, oh well, this has seed oils and this has seed oils, and like what can I even eat anymore? And like that sounds dramatic, but that's kind of where I was for a while. But that's not healthy. So it's about finding kind of a balance in the middle and just thinking of finding out how you function best and how your body functions best. That's something
Mhm.
I've realized as well.
Yeah, it's such a collaborative process between yourself and your body, and the mind can get in there too. But you really like rode the edge of, okay, now I learned that seed oils are very pro-inflammatory. And if I'm dealing with endometriosis, like we think is a real possibility, we need less inflammation in the body to reduce
Yeah,
that pain.
yeah,
So, but then you realized once you really start looking at seed oils, they are everywhere. It's so hard to avoid them. And so it's not going to be able to be all or nothing. And that's where that compassion comes in. But first, the understanding has to be there. And sometimes you do have to have that rude awakening of like, wow, these are everywhere.
yeah,
Okay. How do I move forward with that? And so it is such a collaborative process because it's going to look different for every person. And what I really saw you coming out of this with was just so much more patience and compassion with yourself, towards yourself.
yeah. I agree with that. Even right now, honestly, like I'm in the latter half of my cycle,
Mhm.
so getting closer and closer to the period, and like this morning, and well, I've had some other extenuating circumstances happening as well that I'm not going to go into now, but I've been feeling kind of like extra ragey and
Mm,
extra anxious
mm,
as of late. And instead of in the past, I've been like, why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel like this. Like,
mm,
just stop it. I've kind
mm,
of come at it as like, okay, one, like, why am I feeling like this? What's causing this? Like, two, is there anything that I can do right now that will help me to feel less anxious or less angry at the world? And
mm.
that it makes a difference, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yep.
saw you like bouncing back so much quicker because you have had so many stressors over the period of us working together. I mean, I work with hundreds of clients and you know, I'm not going to reveal anything about your personal life, but it has been a stressful time for you in your life right now. You know, there's been a lot of positive stress and a lot of challenges that you've been facing. And despite that, you've been able to move through those and bounce back a little quicker than you feel like you would have previously because there is less judgment, there is more curiosity, and you have more tools in your toolbox to address what you find when you're listening.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's been really helpful.
Yay. Okay, so let's kind of zoom back, and if you were to give a message, if you were to encounter yourself 4 or 5 months ago, or if you were to talk to someone just starting out in their journey, feeling really hopeless about these symptoms, feeling like there's nowhere to go, feeling like their only options are medications because that's what they've been told, is there anything, any message of hope that you would want to share with those in our community or that past version of yourself?
Yeah. Mhm. I mean, I would start by saying that, and I still believe this, that there's nothing wrong with medication, but that you deserve to be informed of what that medication can possibly do to you. And like, if you decide to go off the medication, for example, like, what will that process look like? Um, that's a lot. That's information that a lot of medical providers do not share, um, which is very frustrating. So I would start by saying, do your research and decide what works best for you. But also, I would say to don't trust yourself and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. So if you think there's something wrong, if you believe there's something wrong,
Mm.
there's something wrong, and you deserve to figure out how to fix it in the best way that works for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, coming back to that self-compassion, coming back to listening to your body. No provider is going to know about you, know about your body, or care about you and your body as much as you are going to. So it can feel like an additional burden, but really it is our responsibility to advocate for ourselves and to know if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And it might take digging a little deeper and working a little harder to get answers, but we don't want to wait 15, 17, 20 years down the line and still be in the same place. Or not the same place, of course, but still be trying to get to the root of what's going on and what are my other options about it.
Right. Yeah. You deserve better and to figure things out sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
So you're not dealing with things for a decade and a half or longer. So,
which is
yep,
so common in our community, unfortunately.
yep,
And then you have the trauma of all of that
yeah,
to work through.
yep,
Ah, it's a never-ending journey.
yeah,
Lots to uncover and traverse through. But it was so exciting to work with you, Shannon, and to see when we first started out in June, we ran your symptom assessment and your total symptom burden was 432 points when we started. And when we wrapped up at the beginning of January, we had reduced your symptom burden by 235 points down to 197. So from 432 to 197, which is a huge reduction in your total symptom burden. Really exciting to see that the work that you put in to this process, you know, we had some tangible results both in how your symptoms were showing up, how you were managing them, how you were feeling about the experience, and feeling about yourself throughout the process, and then to see on the page metrics like that.
Yeah, it was super encouraging. And I will say too, that throughout this process, when I was working with Jess, I legitimately had a period that was 100% pain-free, which honestly, I don't think that's ever happened. And I mean, since then, I've obviously had painful periods, but it's given me hope that better things are possible and that hopefully, especially after surgery, my periods will become better and better and impact my life less and less. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that session where you're just like, I had no pain with my period. It was really weird. Like,
I'm like, something wrong?
yeah. It's wild when that happens after, the symptoms being such a norm
Yeah.
for so long that it can be traumatic for them to not be there.
Yeah.
Be- Because you really can see, wow, this is so different than what usually experience.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see how things continue to play out for you, Shannon. It has been such a joy and pleasure and honor to work with you, to be alongside you on this journey of sorting things out and learning to reduce and manage your symptoms. So thank you for welcoming me into that journey. And don't be a stranger. I love to hear from you. I'm always here to answer your questions, and I'm just cheering you on from the sidelines.
Yeah. It was great working with you. I will keep you posted about things as they unfold.
Mm.
And yeah, look forward to seeing you do even more work to help those of us who have PMDD.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Talk to you later.